Welcome. With me today is Kristen Luke. Kristen uses niche marketing to help financial advisors grow their practice. And recently, she released her new book, Uncomparable, The Financial Advisor's Guide to Standing Out Through Niche Marketing. So Kristen, welcome. Before we get to your book, how did you even get started in financial services and marketing?
Yeah, well, thanks, Jeff, for having me here today. I fell into this industry. My background was in marketing. I was finishing up graduate school with an MBA and a focus on marketing. And the first job I found happened to be with an independent RIA. And so I spent 3 years there. I never thought I would be in finance. It was never something I was very good at. In fact, in my entire academic career, I got a D once, and that was in my undergraduate finance course. By graduate school, I figured it out, but the first time I took it was not great. So finance was never something I thought I would find myself in, but after being in this company for 3 years, I really enjoyed the relationship aspect and the educational aspect of the marketing that is a part of being a wealth management and financial services. And so after 3 years there, I decided in October of 2008, great timing, decided to start my own business doing marketing for independent advisors. So it's been 15 years now on my own, helping advisors across the industry come up with a marketing strategy and then implement that. So
yeah, that's awesome. Like you, I also like financial services. Obviously, more focused on tech, but I agree. I think it's a great industry that can help a lot of people. So, I guess moving into your book, the title of your book is a little unusual. You use the word, I hope I say it right, uncomparable. And if I put that in my word, I get the little red squiggly telling me to fix it. However, this is not a mistake. You were very intentional about this word, which is different from incomparable. Can you explain why you use this as the title of your book?
Right. So when I was thinking about, what is the topic of this book, the common word that everyone uses is incomparable. And I think a lot of financial advisors think about themselves as being incomparable, which means to be so good at something that it's beyond comparison. The thing is to be good at something, it's very fluffy, right? It's not a very tangible thing that you can judge people on. And what I wanted to communicate was it's not so you don't want to just be the best or better than somebody else. You want to be completely different, because that's something that prospects can understand. They can easily compare how you are to another advisor if you're completely different and offering completely different solutions than what other advisors are doing out there. And so uncomparable means that you're so different that you can't be compared to anything else, whereas incomparable is that you're so good that you can't be compared to anything else. So my strategy in working with advisors and this book, really the topic of this book, is how can you make yourself so different that a prospect looks at you and realizes this is the advisor for them because there's no one else that they can compare you with. So then at the end of the day, the advisor becomes uncomparable, though striving for incomparable is also very good.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. I think that makes sense. So that's a way to think of the niche strategy and to be different. It's not just about investment performance, or it's not about having the greatest financial plan. It's about having the greatest financial plan for a specific set of people, or being able to help that specific set of people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, at the beginning of the book, I said you just had this zinger of a quote that just hit me. It kind of hit me right in the heart as a tech person. You had this quote and you said, "They throw tons of money at marketing technologies, ouch, and services, hoping one of them will be the silver bullet, only to discover they never work." Wow. So it hit me hard, and it made me want to read because, as a tech person, I think I'm always interested in what's the latest data science, what's the next technique or whiz-bang technology I can buy and purchase. But you explain in the book that the uncomparable framework is different from using a series of tactics. How is that?
Well, the uncomparable framework is really a strategy. And when I said that quote about all these things don't work, it's not that they don't work. It's just the way they're being used doesn't work. I'm clearly a person who believes in technology. Yeah. But what's missing is usually a clear focus on who the target audience is, or their niche in this case. And then what is the message that they're trying to communicate? And where are these people actually? Where can they find them? And how do they nurture those relationships? I feel like a lot of the technology out there, it's just buy this technology, use it, and prospects will come in. That's not the case if you don't have a strategy and a focus on where you're actually going to put your effort. But once you do, those same tactics can work. But I liken it to this. It's the difference between just sticking or picking stocks or, without having a investment plan to reach your financial goals, than picking stocks once you have that plan in place. And so that's really the difference. Do you have a goal? Do you have an idea of where you're trying to go and who you're trying to reach? Then once you do, then you can use those tactics and you can use all the technology you want, but not before that. And so that's where I see people fail is, there's so many out there where they'll just subscribe to it, start sending out the emails or the social media posts, and it just never works. But once you make those tweaks, it's completely different.
So what you're saying is, for a lot of us, we're kind of looking at the problem upside down,
Yes.
right? We're starting with the tactics and we're asking our buddy, hey, did you use this tool or that tactic? Did it work for you? But we're not talking about the other parts, like, well, how did you use it? What was your strategy? And how did you implement that tool as part of a larger strategy?
Right. So, for example, in my book, I talk about one very specific advisor who was using Facebook groups and Facebook ads to reach his target ideal niche, which was traveling nurses. Well, some people could read that and be like, oh, I should be on Facebook and doing ads and groups. But if you're working with, let's say, high-level business owners, they're not necessarily on Facebook. And so that tactic doesn't work for them. And that's the problem, is not thinking about what is the overall strategy for this particular audience. And you can't just do what everyone else is doing, because that just won't work if you've really picked a good niche for yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you kind of laid out the case for, you want to be uncomparable, you want to have a niche. And so step one in your framework is to niche. But as I talk to a lot of people, I think they're uncomfortable, or they get nervous about niching, and then they end up doing nothing. So how do you get advisors past some of that initial reluctance or hesitancy to niche? Or, they're used to just working in their local geography with just anybody that's there. How do you help get them past that?
Right. A lot of people are afraid because they think they're going to be turning away business, and nobody wants to do that. Or they're afraid that people won't refer to them because all of a sudden they have this new focus. And when someone is just starting with a niche, I tell them this. This is just your strategy for marketing going forward. That doesn't mean you have to stop working with the clients that you currently work with. It doesn't mean that you have to stop taking referrals. If you get random requests on your website, you can still work with those people. But this gives your proactive marketing direction. And most people won't even know what you're doing, because unless they're in that niche, they're not going to see what you're doing, unless you're just maybe more marketing like on Facebook and they're all involved in that. But for the most part, if you're doing good niche marketing, they're not in that niche, they're not going to see it. And one of the things that I do with all advisors who are thinking about doing this is say, you just need a page on your website for your niche. You don't have to make your whole website. And that usually helps alleviate a lot of stress. It's like, oh, I can just keep doing what I'm doing, which is usually not a lot of marketing anyway. And then the proactive marketing I am doing is just going to be focused on this one niche, and I have a direction and I have focus on what I'm going to be doing there.
I think that's interesting. So you're saying you don't have to completely change everything. You don't have to bet the farm per se.
No.
It's almost like making a small bet, adding a page to your website, maybe sending out a specific marketing campaign to this specific target. So it's small steps, not necessarily huge overarching steps.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's all an experiment. You're not going to know if this is going to necessarily pan out for you. So I don't recommend that you go all in from the beginning, unless you're starting your practice or your firm for the first time. And then in which case I would say, yes, put all your eggs in one basket, because you're going to need to take all that effort to start going.
I'm going to call an audible here. So I love what you just said. I have this sign. I don't know if we can see it on the camera. It's probably too much. It says,
oh, I love that.
Yeah. One experiment's worth 1,000 expert opinions. So like what you said is just run a small experiment. You don't again, don't have to bet the farm. Just try. Take the first step.
That being said, you have to give it enough time, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you have to give it enough time to really gain traction, because it just takes a while for people to really believe that you're an expert and that this is something you're focusing on. So I wouldn't try a niche for 3 months and say, oh, that didn't work. But, give it some time and then assess, do I need to make tweaks? Is this a terrible, niche for me? I have seen people do that who've actually brought in plenty of clients in that niche, but realized their pricing model just wasn't going to work with that niche and had to pivot from there. So experimenting is good. So don't go all, you don't have to go all in from the beginning. Just start small.
Okay, so let's say somebody's sold on, they're like, I'm going to niche. I just don't know how to pick my niche. Like, it might feel like information overload on the different possibilities. What are some strategies people can use to help them select a niche that's right for them?
So I usually have them brainstorm 3 different areas. The first one is I start with passion, because that's the easiest one to think about. What are you interested in? What types of clients excite you? What kind of work excites you? And just think of every possible idea that comes to mind. Then I have them look at their aptitude. What is maybe past career experience? I work with a lot of career changers, so that can be a good area for them to explore. Do they have certain certifications or specialties that they've picked up over the years that they really want to focus more on? Or do they have some sort of life circumstance, such as like special needs kids, or something else that they have experienced that is going to be unique to them? And then I have them brainstorm what are all the potential clients that can pay their fees. And that doesn't necessarily mean just straight AUM. I mostly work with RAs. So a lot of them are AUM, but I'm seeing more and more advisors become more creative with their pricing strategy, their fee structure, to be able to accommodate niches that maybe don't have the assets yet, but they definitely have the income to be able to pay their fees. So when you have those 3 areas and you can find an overlap between the 3, then that's going to be a good niche for you. But then you have to evaluate, what is it a viable niche, and also is it a good fit for you? And so in the book, I talk about these different areas. You do want to make sure, first of all, that it is a viable niche. And we look at things like, do they have a pain point? Is there urgency in solving their problem? Do they have complexity that they need to have addressed? Do they have the money to hire you? This is so important. People, you want to pick a niche that's going to pay your fees. Otherwise, it's just going to be a guaranteed loser. Is it growing? How easy is this niche to target? And do you have an opportunity to be a dominant player in this niche because you have narrowed it down to be a specialty that no one else is focusing on? And then you want to look at, is the advisor a good fit? Do they have the expertise? Do they have the credibility? And do they have the access? I once spoke with an advisor who wanted to do airline pilots, and I think he literally pulled it out of a hat because he had no airline experience. He had no airline clients.
Never been on a plane.
Yeah, never been on a plane. And I just thought, this is not going to work for you. This is going to be a long battle. Yeah. Because if you can find a niche where you already have expertise or you have a network, and credibility, that's going to make a much more a smoother process to becoming successful in that area.
I think one of the things in the book that really surprised me is as I was thinking, as I was putting my advisor hat on, I had this fear of picking a niche that was too small, that was too specific. And you said that really doesn't happen. Is that right?
I have yet to see that happen. I have seen people pick a niche where they don't really have a common financial problem, and that's an issue. So, for example, this person had a really good network within, I think, of stamp collecting, but they don't have a financial need that they all share, right?
No, right.
So in that case, it's not really a niche. It's just that's where you happen to network for clients, but it doesn't require expertise. So even that, though, I think there were tens of thousands of potential people that were into stamp collecting that he could have focused on. You really have to think, how many clients do you need? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? So if your niche is, 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times bigger than that, it's going to be fine, right? Yeah. So it doesn't take much.
Yeah, you brought up a good point too on the making sure that you're solving the same common problem, because some of the data you shared was it's not only do you get the marketing benefits, you also get operating benefits or efficiency benefits by solving the same problem. Instead of having to research the solution to multiple problems, you've researched it once, and now you can help a number of clients with that same research that you've done or set up. Yeah.
Yeah, Kitces has done a study on that, and they have found that if you are focused on a niche, that you can actually handle more clients and end up with more income as an advisor than those who don't niche, because you're just so more efficient, because you've seen the same problem 100 times. You can have the same templates and the same process, and it just becomes very easy. So it's easier from a marketing perspective, and it's easier from an operations perspective as well.
Cool. All right. So your framework has 6 parts, and we're not going to talk about all of them today because I want someone to read the book. But I thought part 2, which is positioning. So once you define your niche, you want to kind of position. And I just thought when you talked about messaging, you had this graphic and it was so powerful. And you said simply, one client, one problem, one solution, one outcome. So why is it so important for people to use this formula with positioning and messaging?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, people have limited attention span, and they're not paying that much attention to what you're saying. And so you need to make it as simple as possible for them. I like to give the example of Geico has been saying for like 25 years, spend 15 minutes, save 15% or something like that. I'm sure I didn't get it exactly right, but that's the gist of it, right? And that's all they say in all of their marketing all the time. And it starts to sink in. And if you tell people too many things, they are just not going to absorb what you're saying. And that's not just your clients, but it's also centers of influence or people in the community. And so if you can have one simple sentence that says, this is the client I work with, this is the problem I solve, or this is the problem they face, this is how I solve it, and this is what they can expect, and you repeat that in all of your marketing, it's going to sink in and people will know exactly what you're saying. So your marketing will be more effective. You'll also get more referrals because everybody knows exactly what you do, who you help, how you solve it. And so we actually, in my company, we use a philosophy called Story Brand by Donald Miller. And for obvious reasons, I couldn't put that into my book because it's already trademarked. But, that's another good resource for people that are interested in how do you message, is to read Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand. And they talk about the same thing. Like you just have to have a very clear, simple message that you can repeat over and over again.
Cool. So simple message, easy to remember, easy to refer.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. So switching gears. So we've got our plan in place. Now we want to start taking action. And you call your plan the 3-year plan. So everyone else out there promising short-term results, you're telling me it takes 3 years. I appreciate the honesty, but why does it take so darn long? Why does it take 3 years?
Yeah, I would say anyone who has started their own business, whether it's an actual business or it's just their book of business, will understand that it takes a while to get momentum. Everyone I've talked to in business in general takes about 3 years to really see the momentum. The reason is it just takes people a while to get to know you, like you, and to trust you. And there's no way to speed that up. Well, there are some ways to speed it up, but that's generally how long it takes for people to really hear about you and get to know what you're all about. I would love to say you could do it faster. If you wanted to do it faster, it's really, kind of doing the old school sales techniques of pounding the pavement and talking to as many people as possible. I have to say the people that I've worked, or the advisors I've worked with that are talking to people either on like LinkedIn or on different online forums or just networking, they will bring in business faster. But if you're just kind of working the steps in the framework, it just takes a while for people to realize that this is what you're doing and to hear your message and to find out if you're the right advisor for them. So, I would love to say it's quicker, but it's not. That being said, on the other side of the 3 years, it becomes much easier. The amount of marketing you have to do is actually a lot less because it's like getting a flywheel started. You put all this energy and effort to get it going, but once it's going, it doesn't take that much to keep it going. So a lot of effort on the front end, a lot less effort after that, pretty much forever. You can just kind of do some minimal things to keep things going.
Yeah, that's interesting. There is, speaking of Kitsy's, there's also a chart. He posed the question of, what if you took the amount of money you made from a client and you put all of that money into back into marketing? And it was interesting that the crossover point was right over at 3 years. So once you hit that 3-year mark, then you started making money. And like you said, it just starts to take off. So just really interesting.
Yeah, it's not just my number. I mean, he says that, and actually I think I cite him in the book as coming up with that. But I have, Stephanie Bogan also says the same number. My experience with my business and with the advisors I've worked with has all been about 3 years. And when I was interviewing people for my book, I asked them that, like, how long did it take you to really see to get traction. And most people said about 3 to 4 years, or 2 to 3 years, something like that. Yep.
Okay. So again, it's a long-term game. Don't give up early. Just
Right.
don't try it for 3 months and say, It's really going to be take an intentional plan for 3 years.
Right. But you also don't have to focus on that initial definition of your niche for those 3 years either. After a year, you may say, hey, I've noticed that I'm working with women, but this particular type of woman seems to be gravitating towards me more. I should put more effort and maybe tweak my message to be more towards those people. So it doesn't have to be whatever you decide on day one is what it's going to be on year 3, but it should be kind of the same general category, and you are making effort consistently throughout that period of time.
All right, kind of one final concept from the book that I thought was really interesting is you said, think ecosystem, not funnel. So I know a lot of times in marketing, we think of a funnel is our analogy, right? They start at the top, there's a bunch of people, and they slowly whittle down. What do you mean when you say think ecosystem versus think funnel?
Right. So this is one of the common things that I've heard advisors want is they want a marketing funnel, which is they can somehow insert a prospect into the top of the funnel. So maybe they do like a Facebook ad. And then from there, from the Facebook ad, they go to download an ebook, let's say. And then from there, they get a series of drip emails, they schedule an appointment, and they become a client.
Very linear, right?
Very linear.
Very linear.
And it happens like that. Right? It's just not the way it works. This industry, if you think about it, if you have a client for 20 years and they have $1 million, I'm not doing the math exactly right, but that's like a $200,000 commitment over their lifetime. It takes a lot of trust for them to do that. And so they need to see you in different places and different methods. And maybe it's over a period of years and not just, weeks. And so, one of the things about a niche is that you become a part of that niche community. And so it's easier to spread word of mouth about what you're doing. And so, sure, maybe they downloaded that ebook and they get your emails, but now they went to an event and you're speaking at that event and your credibility just went up with them. And maybe you've linked in with them and they're seeing all of your posts over a period of years and they're starting to get to know you that way. So it's really being in all the places that they are. And that's what I talk about ecosystem. It's just all these different aspects instead of just a linear funnel. Now, I do think you should use a funnel whenever you have a specific campaign. You should use that as a way to design out how it's all going to work, but realize that it never works that way. And if you have one funnel, you're probably not going to see much effectiveness from it. But if you have, you do those different funnels across different types of campaigns and events, and they all overlap with the same audience, then you're going to build out your ecosystem and start to see success.
So this is where the different tactics start to come into play. And it's not just one singular tactic, but kind of the harmony or orchestra of them all coming together. Or I think maybe it was you or somebody wrote the analogy of like, if your business is an island, these different tactics are different bridges or different ways to connect to you.
That was not me, but that's great.
Okay. Okay.
That's a great way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, so last piece of advice from the book I want to talk about. I want to be real clear. So you make your living, like how you get paid and feed your family is through people outsourcing marketing services to you, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that's clear. Be real clear about this. And yet in your book, you said too many advisors want to offload all their marketing. Only you are responsible for your firm's vision, strategy, and results. You must be highly engaged in this process if you expect it to work. You should only outsource support functions. Wow. Care to elaborate?
Yeah. So it's kind of like when advisors just pick different technology or services out there and they think if I just throw money at it, it's going to work, or I'll feel good because I'm actually trying to do some marketing. And then when it doesn't work, I can say, well, at least I tried, right? I have found, and I've worked with hundreds of firms at this point, the advisors who are engaged in it are the ones that are going to be most successful. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily writing their own blogs or that they're doing their own graphic design and all of that, but they are involved in the big picture and they're involved in the strategy and they feel committed to what they're doing and they're willing to put in the effort of talking to people and at least directing their own content and putting their own spin and making it unique. I've seen too many advisors just want to throw money at marketing companies, including my own, and just say, "Oh, just do these pieces." And like anything else, it can kind of become more generic, right? Because they're not putting their own spin and their own uniqueness to it, and they're not out there promoting their message and really getting behind it. And so that's where I see people fail. Marketing is such an important part of the business, and it's really important that the advisor just is involved in it. Now, you can outsource all the other aspects, but you have to be committed to what's happening, and make it your own. And that's the way I've seen advisors be successful.
Awesome. Kristen, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. If someone wants to get a copy of the book or connect with you, what's the best way?
Yeah. So the book is available on all major online retail platforms and ebook platforms as well. If you want a free copy, you can go to the website onniche.com, and you can request a free copy there. And the best way to connect on social media would be LinkedIn, Kristen Luke. Search that.
Awesome. All right, Kristen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff.